Bom dia, welkom naar ons bijeenkomst nummer 10. Bom semana para toda gente presente. Ave mainta nós trabalhamos uma apresentação de lo que está organização UNOPS. Dus er is een presentatie United Nations Officers for Service Protection, tocante de possível nieuwe penitentiaire inrichting te Barcadera. Nós está passar a palavra para o minister e para nos vai over na local está a apresentação de organização aqui para dar-nos vista de Kiko não está aconselhar governo de que direção para lo que está de caso aqui guia novo para nosso país. Minister Dawes.
Senhor Presidente, bom dia. Senhor Presidente, bom dia, membros do Parlamento. Danke por a oportunidade. A mim nós aqui na unidade com o UN Ops e é importante para nós abrir uma apresentação, projeto com hobby grande, que é projeto também com na várias ocasiões a esse mesmo processo que nós agora aqui e aí na mesma conclusão comecei a para prisão novo. Nós mira com nos colegas na St. Martin, nos irmãos de St. Martin, cá no mesmo processo aqui e com o resultado a ver com nós nossa teina é ponemento de primeira pedra de prisão aqui. Nós cá no mesmo processo agora aqui que na parte inicial do processo aqui na Aruba e me que é bom para nós informar o Parlamento de aqui para sobre com projeto que nós estamos trabalhando de já aumenta bem 120 milhões de florins e que é importante para Turende tá troca no processo aqui foi o começamento para nós não hayamos nenhum problema na caminha. O que é muito importante é para compreender o processo está caminho que botar desenvolver para no momento aqui tem ideia e ponto de saída para botar desenvolver projeto e na final a placa que eu mencionar significa que botar já de momento projeto completamente claro. Nós assinamos com a organização aqui da United Nations mesmo vai construir prisão, mas aqui rato da apresentação me quer elobira claro que rol nanta hunga de processo que nós também advisor de Holanda que dá presente conosco o diretor de prisão também está presente e nosso advisor. Mas
Mas dank minister, seguro o Parlamento também está apreciar o choco de schedule druk com a organização tem a criar espaço para nós estar rato no Parlamento para se dar informação de local está e desenvolver aqui. Minister, na quem me lobo passe a palavra para a apresentação? Sim.
Good morning. I'm just trying to put the presentation on as well. I can click. Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Honourable Chairperson of Parliament, Members of Parliament, Minister and public viewers. UNOPS is happy to be here today. We would also like to express our appreciation working with the government of Aruba the past few months and the different persons within the justice sector that have been part of the process as stakeholders. So we appreciate the opportunity today to present our findings and looking forward what the next steps would look like. Just a short overview of our presentation today. Very shortly, who UNOPS is, the technical assistance that was provided to Aruba, the different deliverables such as the gap analysis, the prison profile, and the business case, and of course the next steps moving forward. I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but just for everybody to know, as the UN is quite a vague term, there are many different organizations. UNOPS is the United Nations Office for Project Services, which is an operational arm of the UN, which specializes in implementation of projects. UNOPS supports governments and partners in translating policies and plans to create tangible projects on the ground. The three main core focuses are infrastructure, procurement, and project management. These are the key pillars of UNOPS. UNOPS is a fully self-funded UN organization and operates not for profit, but on a cost-based recovery But this means that UNOPS works efficiently, transparently, and with accountability for partners. UNOPS focuses on peace and security, humanitarian development, sustainability, and projects within that, focusing on infrastructure. Of course, the main goal is the 2030 SDG agenda of the UN. Very short, these are certain sectors that we focus on in the Caribbean when it comes to energy transition, water management and sanitation, infrastructure planning, health, and of course, rule of law. Very shortly, UNOPS has a physical presence in St. Martin, as the Minister mentioned, Aruba, Jamaica, Barbados, and Cuba, but we also have partnerships with different projects in the broader Caribbean, as you can see on this slide here. Very shortly, just so you have a few examples, we are working, for example, in St. Martin on multiple projects when it comes to a rule of law facility, which is funded by both the Netherlands and St. Martin, a wastewater management facility on St. Martin, which is funded by the EU. In Barbados, we are focusing on infrastructure and procurement as it pertains to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And another project was a binational project between Costa Rica and Panama regarding a infrastructure bridge project. Moving actually now to the reason why we are here today. UNOPS engaged with Aruba, with the government of Aruba, to support the rule of law sector in strengthening the justice sector, but specifically looking at the correctional infrastructure facility. We refer to this as Phase 0, and it supported Aruba in creating certain deliverables, which included a high-level prison profile and a business case for potential development of a new correctional facility. The engagement was implemented in partnership with the government of Aruba, specifically the Ministry of Justice. The budget for this Phase 0 was $191,000, and this was through a grant from the Netherlands, the Ministry of BZK. The 4 deliverables is first a gap analysis of the current KIA facility, which provides a consolidated assessment of the infrastructure conditions, the operational constraints, and the capacity needs. The second was the development of a high-level prison profile. This outlined the type of facility required to meet international standards, but also the local context of Aruba's needs. Thirdly, a spatial definition, which provides a preliminary functional configuration for the facility. And the last deliverable is the business case itself, which assesses the necessity, social impacts, operational procedures and benefits, but also the financial feasibility of moving forward with the project, which includes initial estimates for construction and operational costs with a potential new facility. Together, these deliverables are elements that can provide the government of Aruba with a structured and evidence-based basis to be able to make decisions moving forward for the potential modernization of the correctional facility and the justice chain as a whole. I will now introduce my colleague, Yone Rodriguez. He's a prison infrastructure specialist, and he can give more information on the technical side of the deliverables.
Thank you very much. Hello.
So if we could...
Thank you very much. As my colleague Rogelio was saying, I'm going to introduce to you the technical findings of this project. And we will start with the gap analysis. The gap analysis, what is this? This is just an understanding of the distance between where we are and where we'd like to be in terms of prison infrastructure in Aruba. So what we've done is we've established communication with all the relevant stakeholders, mostly KIA, try to understand what's the ideal state, what do we want as prison infrastructure. And the answer to this is very clear. We want effective rehabilitation. We want every inmate that leaves the prison back into their communities to be fully active and productive in society. Of course, we want to prevent reoffending as much as possible. So we take a look at how we make this happen. So a prison itself is a building, it's an infrastructure that hosts a process. And this process has 5 pillars that we have tried to understand and we have analyzed. Those are governance, operational capability, safety and security, and service and programs. And of course, last but not least, it all happens in an infrastructure. We have analyzed this with Kia, and we have established that they do have policies and procedures. They do have workforce and systems in place. They do have a knowledge and understanding of what the security model takes and risk management. And of course, there are services and programs. However, our first conclusion is that all this is not finding an operational alignment because it's all impaired by the infrastructure. The infrastructure right now is not fit for its purpose. And instead of aligning all these aspects into one common goal, which is effective rehabilitation, the teams are constantly adapting and improvising due to the lack of appropriate infrastructure. So infrastructure, as per today, doesn't enable the final goal of rehabilitation all the way around, it stops it. So our first conclusion is the existing infrastructure is no longer fit for its purpose. Then we come up with a prison profile, which is a definition of what this new prison would look like in terms of capacity, in terms of typology. And how do we do this? Again, we sit down, we conducted a number of meetings and workshops with all relevant stakeholders. Of course, Kia, representatives of the Ministry of Justice, probation services, public prosecutor, everyone who has an involvement within the justice chain has been participating, and we have really asked them to be ambitious and to provide their wish list in terms of what would the new infrastructure need to provide in terms of services, so we can make sure that whatever we come up with provides an appropriate response for the needs. And of course, in coordination with that, we need to calculate the capacity and determine the prison typology. For what we use, all the information that is available. For the capacity calculation, of course, we have all the data available of current population, expected crime trends, backlog of not executed sentences, and of course, the different demographics that need to be taken into account. All of that, of course, we put together in a mathematical model with a future sentences forecast, and we come up with an expected capacity calculation. On the other hand, we have the prison typology. For what we need to understand, the use of this prison, the inmate population, the different demographics, the different groups, risk levels, and so on, the daily programs that want to be conducted in the prison. Of course, we need to take into account the prison staff, how they work, how do they operate, how would they like to operate, the numbers, the shifts, and so on. And at last, the prison infrastructure itself, the expected lifespan, the typology, probability of future expansions in the future, so we have everything into account when proposing a new model. So the findings of our prison profile. Well, in general, I can summarize that we definitely are looking into a targeted approach infrastructure, because one of the particularities of Aruba is a small country with only one prison, so this prison needs to host all kind of profiles of inmates. So we really need to have a targeted approach to make sure that every category of inmates has their specific environment, specific programs, and specific services for the profile. Following to that, we have identified the campus layout as the most appropriate one. We have a little picture here of an example of a prison in Denmark, which provides more or less an image of what a campus prison looks like. What are the main particularities of a campus prison? Well, that it allows different environments and different programs to be taking place at the same time, which adapts perfectly to this situation of a large number of different profiles of inmates at the same time. Within the campus layout, we are looking into a cluster delivery system, which means that every little prison within the prison will have their own services and programs in place. However, they, of course, will share some common services. like, of course, administration, visits, facilities, and a number of workshops and other infrastructure that can be optimized and be put in use for different clusters. Next thing we have come up with, the standards. We are not using any standards. We are not copying standards from elsewhere. We are creating Aruban standards. We are making sure that the response that we bring is totally fit to the context. So we have tried to compile international standards and best practices and translate them into the particularities of the context of Aruba. And at last, sustainability and resiliency. Of course, we need to take into account all the particularities, climatology, location, durability, environmentally friendly construction. All of this has to be taken into account to come up with a sustainable design. In terms of performance, the capacity. We have come up through our mathematical analysis with a maximum new capacity of 360 inmates. This is our first estimation, and this can be really adjusted in further stages when the design is happening. Our first view says that we are coming from an existing 300 to a potential maximum number of 360 inmates, which roughly can be understood like Aruba doesn't necessarily need a much bigger prison. It needs a better prison. It needs a more suited prison for the needs. And we would like also to make a difference between nominal capacity, which is the capacity of people that the prison would host, and the built capacity, which is going to be slightly bigger. It's going to be 398. What does that mean? It means that we need some extra spaces to safely conduct the activities, and we have flexibility for the operations of every day. For example, spaces in the medical center, those don't account as nominal capacity. However, it's places that need to be there just to safely run their daily operations. When it comes to operational expenses, this is the cost of running the prison. Well, the existing prison is definitely not efficient when it comes to running it. With a new design, more optimized and more efficient, we can decrease up to 18% the expenses per inmate per year when running the new facilities. Other features like high security unit, we have concluded that maximum security is not necessary in Aruba. However, this prison would include a high security unit, which is, again, a prison within a prison with its particular infrastructure, with its own security perimeter, but maximum security level is not necessary. However, high security will be included. Next, the lifespan of the prison. We are thinking of looking at 40 years lifespan, what means that everything we plan on in terms of services and in terms of infrastructure needs to be fully operational and fully sustainable for at least the next 40 years. And finally, one specific point for Aruba is the backlog. Right now, there's a number of individuals that have already been sentenced, but they cannot get their sentence executed because of the lack of space. So that needs to be addressed as well. It's something that has been taken into account for our analysis as well. One of the outcomes of the prison profile is the bubble diagram, as we call it, which is a flow diagram that represents all the little clusters. Every rounded blue bubble that you see is a cluster that hosts a different kind of population. So as you can see, we have a number of blue bubbles go all the way around the prison. Those are hosting facilities for different profiles of inmates. However, they have the black and the gray bubbles, as you can see. They are common shared services that provide services for all the clusters. As you can see, this is very easily translated into the cluster layout that we presented earlier. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is a pre-designed, it's just the conceptual layout that we would like to propose. In terms of coming up with a prison profile, we have a number of functioning assumptions that we need to present, because when we analyze the full context, we see that there's a number of inefficiencies that can be addressed, and some of them is the number of short sentences. When we took a look at the profile of the sentences, we understood that 70% of the sentences represent sentences below 6 months. And of course, this is a high use of infrastructure for sentences that are can be easily be subjected to alternative measures. For example, community services, financial fines, electronic monitoring, and so on. So what we propose is an optimization of the infrastructural resources and therefore the budget, so we can implement alternative measures to the shortest sentences, so we don't produce inefficiencies in the infrastructure. Another assumption that we are making is that there's going to be an early release after 2/3 of sentences upon satisfactory evaluation. This is happening already in Aruba. This is in place. There's the legal framework for that, and we're just assuming that this will keep happening. And other assumptions, juvenile and undocumented immigrants are not going to be users of this new facility. There's going to be specific solutions for these demographics, so we are not including them in our analysis. In terms of services, I would like to highlight what this prison could bring as a new performance. We have services identified. First of all, is the induction ward. Induction, this would be a first step into the prison. When new inmates arrive, there would be a specific facility for them to be properly observed, classified, to have a risk assessment, security assessment, to identify vulnerabilities and so on. So when we send someone into the final premises, we make sure that this is the correct place and the appropriate place for their particular profile. And another new service that is being proposed for the prison is a step-down unit. It's totally the opposite. It's before being released for those inmates that the board considers appropriate. There will be a transitional phase back into freedom, which means there's going to be a mixed regime where they can go out during the day and they can still spend some time in the prison to safely transition back into society. Of course, this is a monitored service. Those are the two new services that are innovative for the Aruban context that we are proposing in our model. And finally, reintegration and daily programs. The main purpose of this prison, as I said earlier, is effective reintegration, effective rehabilitation, and therefore the whole prison is designed and structured around the necessary services and programs to guarantee effective rehabilitation. Finally, coming to our business case, which is, okay, all this, how this translates into a financial project, into a budget. Well, as my colleague explained before, we divide the next steps in two phases. Phase one, which is a design, full design, construction design, plus the procurement process for the construction. And after that, a phase two, which is the full construction, including construction management, the handover of the premises, and the guarantee periods. What's the cost of all of this? Well, the two phases together, they add up to $119 million that are divided into phase one, which is $10.5 million, and phase two, $108.8 million. This is when we talk about capital expenditure. And UNOPS provide a turnkey solution. What does this mean? It means that we take care of the whole process up to the prison being rendered operational. That's what we call in construction management turnkey solution. This is for the capital expenditure, which is the cost of constructing. As we can imagine, $119 million, that wouldn't be spent all at once. It would be spent in a period of 4 years, which is the duration of the whole project. And since we are talking of a lifespan of 40 years, we can assume that more or less, if we divide this amount into the full lifespan of the prison, we would have a capital expenses of around $3 million per year. On the other hand, we have the operational expenditure, which is the cost of running the new prisons. At this stage, we can only compare with the existing costs of KIA right now. The data available is 2025. So we would bring down the operational expenditure per inmate per year by 18%. This means that the cost of one inmate per year would come down from roughly 63,000 US dollars to 51,000 US dollars. In terms of the total expenditure, since the capacity is going to be increased, there's also going to be an increase of the total cost, but it would be way more efficient, so that would decrease the proportional cost per inmate per year. And finally, I spoke about a 4 years chronogram to implement the full project. This includes roughly 1 year for the full studies and design development. When we say design, we're just not talking about the construction design. We also talk about the design of the operational procedures to efficiently run this prison. This period would take around 1 year, and that would be followed by the procurement process to award the construction contract. This is a very heavy intervention because we would need to consider an international tender program to make sure that efficient and reliable international companies can apply, so we can identify the most suitable candidate to conduct the construction. The construction itself would take between 1 year and a half and 2 years. And finally, once the building would be handed over to the Ministry of Justice, there would be a defect notification period, which is basically a guarantee of all the premises that would go on for another year. So altogether gives us a total period of 4 years, and we are in agreement with the Ministry of Justice that we need to do an expedite processes when it comes to administrative requirements, when it comes to agreements, when it comes to permits, so we can accelerate the process as much as possible. And the objective would be to render the prison operational by the end of 2028. I give the word back to my colleague Rogelio.
Thank you. So this was our last slide. We're concluding with the presentation. Maybe just a short recap. What we've done till now is the phase 0. That was the discussion regarding the deliverables. What my colleague Yune just presented is what would the process look like moving forward when we talk about phase 1, which is the technical designs and the planning of a new facility and the procurement processes. That is the phase 1. And phase 2 would be the construction itself. So this can be done in different chunks, and it's of course up to, we've delivered now our phase 0, and the decision making lies then with the government of Aruba for the process towards phase 1 and phase 2. If we engage towards a phase 1 engagement, there are certain follow-up steps to be taken with UNOPS, which includes drafting of a cooperation agreement and a legal proposal between Aruba and UNOPS for the phase 1. And the negotiations, of course, regarding that proposal. And then when it comes to the legal framework, that is for having UNOPS on the ground functioning in Aruba. The short term would be to have, for example, an executive letter by the government of Aruba allowing UNOPS as a UN organization to operate here on the ground. The long-term solution is what UN organizations do in many countries, and what UNOPS has done in St. Martin as well, is come to a host country agreement, een zetelverdrag, as they say in Dutch, which is on behalf of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, but for a specific part of the kingdom. So this would be for Aruba, and that establishes the long-term presence of UNOPS in Aruba. We thank you today for your time, and this concludes our presentation.
Thank you for your presentation. I see the first hand of Rocker Chong. I have some questions from the people of UNOPS.
Yes. Thank you very much, voorzitter. Good morning, everybody. I would like to start by thanking UNOPS for the work that you guys presented today. I think this really provides us with much more insight, and I'm really happy to see that the government continued with this process, because I really think it's of added value for Aruba at the end of the day. I have a couple of questions. Some are directed to UNOPS, some are directed to the minister. If I may start, I saw that you guys presented a sample of the campus layout in Denmark. However, if I look at the costs, right at the bottom, the costs were mentioned. They differ from the costs that you guys presented just now. So I would like to see if you guys can elaborate on that. I saw that the one in Denmark the cost was 160 million US dollars. If you guys can also elaborate a bit more on how you guys will, or how you guys believe that there will be an 18% decrease in operational expenses. If you guys can elaborate a bit more on that. And I believe you did mention it, however, I did not get a chance to write it down. Once the new prison is in place, what will the yearly recurring costs be? Maintenance, operations, etc. Then I have 3 questions directed to the Minister. I saw and read that juveniles will be excluded from the new KIA. So if the Minister could elaborate on what the plans are for the juveniles, and also if there will be a separate facility for the juveniles, so what would these costs be? Where will this juvenile detention center be located? And if one last question also with regards to the new prison, the location. Will it be at Barcadera, or will it be at the same place where it is now? I believe the Minister mentioned in his opening remarks that there's not a decision yet if UNOPS will be involved in the next phases, if that is correct. If the Minister can confirm that, and also what is the Minister's point of view on the short-term and long-term legal framework that was presented by UNOPS just now. So those are my questions, Voorzitter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chong. Who gonna answer these questions?
Ja, ik kan staan. We kunnen ook eerst gaan. Ja. Ja, ga maar eerst. Technische vragen.
Okay. So, if you allow me, I will try to answer your 3 questions. The first one was regarding the cost of the prison that we used as a model, as an inspiration, so speaking. It's let me see if I can share the screen. No, okay. So this prison, it's similar in layout. However, it's very different in size. It's only a 250 inmates prison. It's way more expensive. It's 160 million US dollars. It's Denmark. It's a different context, of course, with particularities, and as well. In particular, this prison is rather more expensive because it has a network of tunnels underground that, of course, you cannot see in the picture. Then, of course, we can enter whether Aruba and Denmark costs, where they differ, but at the end of the day, it's different context, so I wouldn't really get into the specifics. But the size is in terms of capacity, is way smaller, so that prison is way more expensive in that sense. To your second question regarding the OPEX, why they increase? Well, the 18% decrease of the operational expenditure. There's 2 reasons for that. First one, because the infrastructure would be more efficient in terms of use of energy and services, and on the other hand, because of the manpower that needs to operate it. A very inefficient prison requires the same staff to do repetitive tasks, like transferring inmates from one place to the other several times, very inefficiently, and a well-designed and a well-planned prison would optimize all these costs. On one hand, we have the fixed cost, which is services and infrastructure, and running costs, which are mostly the staff. So all those would be optimized, and our analysis indicates that down to 18%. And of course, I emphasize on the operating model. This new prison would be tailor-made for the operational model that KIA wants to implement. So that's where the optimization would come. And finally, for the OPEX, it was in the presentation, I will come back to it. The operational expenditure per year would be around 18.5 million US dollars per year, as compared to 50 million today, for a shorter number of inmates. Does that respond to your questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your answers. Mrs. Ruth Lindor? Dat was wel de bekontista.
Senhor Presidente, Senhor Presidente, tem três perguntas. É location. A location awardo opgenomen in ROPV met de compreender na barcadeira, dus área que por construir uma prisão, então ponto de saída tá que lo mantém área área que não é existente, então área que não saco efeito de salpeiros da cena grande, riba edifício que está sendo difícil para manter edifício aqui de uma forma adequada. Dus está no momento aqui maneira que está planificada em ROPV na barcadeira. Para o que trata jeugddetentie, senhor presidente, ponto de saída está com jeugddetentie, não também agora assim em prisão. Dus não está assim aí com nenhum gente jovem não está em prisão, pero a uitvoering de jeugddetentie, men põe in lei, e intenção está pensando no lugar em ortopedagogisch centrum, é a unificação, adaptação, e adaptação é nos meses assim, calculação ainda para o que está justiça. Dus esse é o ponto de saída, com os poucos na caminho. De três perguntas tá que nós diz que não tem decisão se está seguir que UN Ops se klopt sobre que o senhor presidente nós ministério chega a uma conclusão se nós também temos suficiente placa para construir a prisão. E se não também construir a prisão é hora aí se não tem construir a prisão de forma aqui é hora aí nós não firma tampouco acordo agora que não acaba para suma com a hora proposta em fase 1. E nós chegamos a conclusão definitiva, sabe que é o que tem na mesa para começar a pensar se tem budget, pensar se o budget não sabe se o finanço está assim de discussão e basar em esse na final hora vira claro que a suma logo vai estar. Eu não sou decidir também que nós vamos firmar, nós vamos firmar acordo depois que nós vamos cumprir com ele. E ponto de saída está no momento que o senhor presidente que nós estamos tendo número na continuamente agora aqui, mas ainda não sabemos se pensa se tem caminho que nós for mirando já desordem que tem de detenção, por exemplo, a possibilidade para passo eletrônico de detenção, que o visto que você Kiko, lo me pode reduzir também o custo, não? Nós vamos tocar de hobby placa, como este guardo dedicado a projetos negros. Mas tanto tempo que nós não temos go riba suma fijo para o presupuesto, nós não por vai over na seguinte de duas fases. Pero que nós está trabalhando bem tem speed up acelerar se esse caso.
Mas dank minister, senhor Lindor.
Dank u, voorzitter. I have a few questions. The Minister of Justice is well known as how long I have been trying to get Aruba a new prison. Back in the days in 2012, when I used to work for him, we tried through the UNDP program. So I'm so happy to see that we are now again revisiting the idea. As a criminologist, I do not believe that building a new prison in Aruba is an expenditure, but an investment, because without a probably functioning prison, you can never ever have the function it's supposed to have in society, which is to rehabilitate and get back our citizens on the right path so that they can function as well citizens in the society. A few of my questions, one was already answered in regards to the juveniles under 18. I'm going through them to start back. So what of the proportion of the facility is dedicated to mental health treatment? And how will Aruba manage the small number of long-stay forensic psychiatric offenders that we already have in Aruba? Because I've seen that we don't have a TBS regime. The prison is designed based on population projections. I saw you have a growth projection. But if rehabilitation policies succeed, incarceration rates may decline. So my question is the design flexible enough to repurpose parts of the facility if prison populations stabilize or decrease? Modern prisons depend not only on architecture, but on well-trained correctional professionals. So how does the project support the development of a professional rehabilitative correctional workforce? Given that our police holding facilities contribute already to a lot of mental distress and suicide, because we do have a few suicide cases in our detentions, will the design standard of the new prison also inform modernization of police detention centers across Aruba? How does the new prison connect with the broader justice ecosystem, including probation, social services, and rehabilitation programs. Right now, part of our prison population consists of individuals who cycle repeatedly through the system due to drug addiction or social vulnerability. So how does the design include therapeutic units or treatment programs that can break this cycle? That was already asked. And finally, as a sustainable officer, I'm wondering, will the prison integrate renewable energy solutions, such as solar energy given in Aruba's climate? Are the plans for the circular system, such as water recycling, sustainable food production, or vocational training connected to sustainability? Can the rehabilitation programs include green jobs or circular economy training, preparing inmates for employment in sustainable sectors? And last, how will the prison contribute to social dimensions of sustainability, strengthening community safety, and reducing recidivism? Those were my questions.
Thank you for the questions, Mrs. Lindor. Yes?
Thank you very much. There's a number of questions, so I will just try to compile in a couple of responses. First of all, many of the things that you address, we're totally aligned on the concerns. However, this is a conceptual design stage, so this is where we draw the sketch of what the prison would entitle and the basic needs. Phase one would be a detailed design, and that's the moment to elaborate on many of the things that you have described. At this stage, it's very early. First of all, we need to agree on layout of the prison and the typology and all, but most of the things, we are not including them in the report today, but we are already keeping it in mind. For example, we have been in contact with AWSS and to analyze the potential implementation of solar energy, water recycling. All that is not included yet because it's too early a stage to include it, but all these are things that are going to be taken into account for the design. That's 100% sure because we all agree that's the most appropriate approach. To go point by point, we didn't get into the details of the prison profile, but when it comes to mental health and forensics, there's going to be a specific word for it. We have worked in common with Kia and Rispaldo to make sure that we provide not only the sufficient capacity, but also the appropriate services. So yes, mental health and forensics word is included in the design. I don't know how, but all this information could be shared if you're interested. We didn't include in the presentation, not to get into so much detail, but yes, it is included. Design flexibility, of course, again, yes. We have done an estimation based on crime trends and demographic forecast. This can be fine-tuned and adjusted, and it has to be. For example, I mentioned we are taking a couple of assumptions in terms of calculating the capacity. Those assumptions need to be reviewed as well and agreed upon with all the involved stakeholders. Of course, there's a certain element of guess when we come to the demographic forecast, but we can fine-tune as well the forecast. And the campus layout allows a lot of flexibility when it comes to construction. For example, I'm just giving examples. We could decide that one cluster is not fully built today, we just leave it for later. We save the place, we have all the services ready, and that can be implemented later on. The same way, another cluster can be added because the campus typology allows a lot of space, and it already takes into account these probabilities for the future. As I said, the design phase is the moment where all this will have to be studied more in detail. When you talk, if we support a rehabilitation workforce, yes, absolutely yes, it's a great idea, and we encourage and foster that as well. Operating model and capability trainings, you mentioned. As I said, for us, the design has two pillars, and they come connected from the beginning to the end. We don't design a building, we design a building plus how to use efficiently the building. yes, the operating model is something that we will have to review. We cannot copy what's been done so far because it's done in a different infrastructure and under different circumstances. So alongside with the design of the infrastructure, we need to work on the operating model. Does it include? So, and I would definitely, sorry, I need to ask you again about does it include the cell detentions? I didn't understand the question. Cell detention. About Kia, about the detention cells, the holding cells.
Yeah, they are designed. That's a KPA. They also have them.
Yeah, KPA is okay.
Apartments, if they're also part of the renovation, seeing that you go from the one to the other.
Yes, we have been into contact with them. As one of side scopes of our work has been getting in contact with them, understanding their needs for the future, and understanding how KPA interacts with Kia, so we can optimize because they share resources and they share workforce as well. So we have included them in the conversations. Sorry, because I didn't quite understand the question from the beginning. And at last, you asked about the therapeutic programs. Yes, as I said, mental health and forensics are included. We are also included addiction treatment programs and physical health. We have tried to get all the relevant actors on board, and they have brought out over their concerns, their expectations, and also their wish list. And we are happy to say that they've been included in these early stages of the conceptual design, and they will be definitely included in the design phase. Wastewater. Yeah, wastewater. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Sorry. Thank you. Yeah.
Sì, Sr. Presidente, para o que é facilitado na TBS, nós não temos clínica de TBS na Aruba, nenhuma parte do Caribe, e me nota que com minha experiência como tenho é implementável tampouco. Mas não vou criar TBS clínica e paguei para pôr tratar gente da região aqui. Então mira se tem análise sobre o último tempo na papia de certo quantidade de pessoas que vivem dentro do Caribe holandês que lo recebem na remarca para TBS anualmente. E me que é interessante para se estudo pensar que a sua pergunta se você tem gente como esse tem TBS, na nota é TBS, na nota hora tratar e na nota forma peligro que é substancial para diferentes sociedades. Na hora me se vai análise se combina com na porta viva da sociedade sim com nada passa que vem of estudando com uma mira último tempo na nota 4. Mas é pouco não se vai analisar mais profundo. Então dos tem prisão novo mesmo que tem só aqui não é condição da roupa malo sim. Pero me tinha facilidade caminho como por atender correndo não que tinha retorno na visa seja de maleza não psicossocial, psicológico, psiquiátrico e adicção que é parte de mesmo componente de mental health. Então, vou me ser como mais melhor personal e melhor facilidade. Essa é a parte sim do programa de som novo. Para o que trata é célula de polícia, a ideia está que eliminar toda a célula de polícia, mas quando existia agora aqui não. Então, criar central célula complexa. A ideia está para construir banda de prisão, então para pôr sala de corte também na viagem, isso aí pode ajudar nós a reduzir grande quantidade de custo de transportamento de gente continuamente, no lugar de transportar, botar riba e profissional em não. Que bem certo, ponto de salida agora que também tem cálculo não que hora assim. E onde três perguntas, é parte de resolução. E me quer que nós agora que na fase de tu passa em eletrônica de detenção e não há nós aqui com a infraestrutura foi parte da clá nós não há start ainda maneira que está tincada nós lei agora que não está possível fazer ele vou fazer de duas formas se é justiça se é Ministério Público não pode fazer ele pero nós nesse vai dos costumar também comunidade com essa que tem forma como por pasto limitação de movição de gente ou proteção da comunidade. Então, esse aí também, segundo mim, se você tem na consideração, se você tem um número de responsabilidade para criar uma prisão nova, é muito interessante se você pôr de uma eletrônica detenção na categoria de gente da comunidade, como não tinha ser em canal de um céu, que custava menos quanto 1.000 florins por dia para botar na serai dentro, sendo que botar na vai levar de uma área que ainda que proteger gente da comunidade forinang, sim que botar carga e custo não hopi alto com os 5 anos. Então, me te queira agora que na hora tu ainda mira número não, for tá pensando profissional, me te queira em comunidade não, se hopi ainda comunidade visa você ainda se malo com tirar de prisão, ser logo que tirar before, é algo comum de nossa sociedade. Pero me queira mira a cifra na aqui, botar me pensar mais breito, mais amplo, que diz bisa nos que traz para ser a gente. E de sujo me te queira seguir também tem dia na nosso lado. E daquele que seja quando você pergunta adicional, tem que aqui dá abril, me entende. Danke.
Ajudando aqui, senhor Dowers, no seguinte parlamentário com pergunta da senhora Otami Tomasia.
Bom dia, colega Nang. Bom dia, minister. Bom dia, danke para a apresentação. I'll go over in English so then it's easier. I enjoyed the presentation. It's very informative and very happy that we're going, our mindset of what a prison should be has shifted with that you give each and individual the care they need because at some point they have to go back into the community. I've seen most of my question has been answered already from my colleagues, but I have one question which is taking out the immigrants out of our prison. So I wanted to know in what direction we're heading, if we're going to do a facility, like fix a facility, especially for them, waiting deportation and what the idea is going to be for them, or how is that additional cost for taking them out of the clusters, and it's going to be something separately? Is that going to be additional cost? Because they have cost that every day that they stay here on our island, that's a cost for the island as well. So how are we going to do that or carry that? And also, my colleagues was talking about how we're going to prepare the workers that we already have in the Kias for the new model of Kia, because we know they've been complaining for a long time of how the setting in the Kia that they are very depressive, you know, the whole sphere. So we have to retrain them with the new model, the new concept. How is that going to go? If is something that is going to start from now, that they will be ready within the first phase, second phase, third phase to start our new direction, because I would not assume that is in year 4, we're going to start training them for the new model. Also, the cost, the additional cost of the youth, I was wondering why the concept of taking the under 18 out of the cluster, if there's a reasoning for that, or just research given that no, we're not going to put underage kids in a cluster, because I'm thinking because they're clustered that it would have a space that you can make with their own gym, with their own outside time, whatever the cluster, that it would be able to cluster them with them, or taking them out of it, that is going to be another additional cost fixing a facility, especially for the youths. What's the idea behind it? So I just want to be clear of what's the research behind the different decision of taking them out, of not creating a cluster. Because if the price, we're saying that yearly the price is going to decrease with 18%, but we also took people out of the concept of what we have now, if those numbers are going to shift and go into somewhere else that is going to cost us money. Thank you, Voorzitter, for the space.
Thank you, Mrs. Tomasia. The Minister.
Senhor Presidente, met de commissaris parte die, even kijken, buitenlanders dan, de foreign inmates. Dat zien eigenlijk de no-systemen, si bo comete un crime, i bo worden sentenciado na rua, boto worden será. Dat maakt niet uit si bota buitenlander of Arubian of whatever, boto worden será, bota bij de mesmo regime depende de crime que bo comete de cel. Ik ben ook te zien eigenlijk nog een faciliteit speciaal para buitenlanders. No que si no está si timbiata pasto no se la ganan baisi, timbia mas trempang e deportada. Anto, lo que nós purba prevenir o mais tanto possível, para não juist para nós estar na tempo, ora que o momento chega na hora sacar a prisão, para nós sacar na de Aruba, mas é possível na lugar de interesse não over de vreemdelinge detentie. Criminal, o cometeu crime, também com prisão, e não também vreemdelinge detentie. Vreemdelinge detentie, para buitenlanders staan que juist não cometeu crime. Que está dentro de cada bestuursrechtelijk a violar nos regelen de imigração, anto e permanência legal na Aruba, será também de vreemdeling detentie, faciliteit na in place, e dan tuta agora que nós remodelar esse agora será bem no aeroporto e nós está pondo em função, também. Para o que trata de jeugddetentie, nós avisa que botin dus wettelijk jeugddetentie e botin hobing não que cometer crime. Hobing, notur hobing está em jeugddetentie. Jeugddetentie é outro tipo de forma de castigo que gewoon se vai cometer crime que vai perseguir como volwassene. Também hobing, als voor worden veroordeeld, voor missa juzgar como volwassene, é também gewoon ding volwassen detentie. Weliswaar, botin moet zorgen para proteger-se em prisão que pode ainda mais grande. Então, a facilidade tem modelo novo que deve ser criado. Vou por scale up e scale down e vou por apartar em certa ideia de prisão novo. Pero, als het gaat echt om toepassing van jeugddetentie, uitgangspunt dat wat je zei in het centrum pedagógico, então vamos ter adaptação em não e muitas áreas van uitkomen adaptação em não, ja, dat kost plakken, maar dan também não sim que tem prisão novo. E segundo pergunta mais. Workers? Ja, nou, het is een ongoing process. Dus ons ministerie dedica muito mais atenção na aspecto aí e nós está bezig, pero no momento que vou criar prisão novo, vou criar também full conceito novo, pero nós está bezig, se investir o acaba de ja, enkele approach para o detenido não. Ja?
Mas dank je bij contestan, senhora Muzanin Weaver. U nam mas.
Yes, I would like to reply on how we're going to prepare the staff. That was one of your concerns. As I said, the design process is not only design for the building, it includes also the design of the operational model, which would start in the very first stage. That would be according to the chronogram that I presented. If it happens that way, that would start this year for a new prison that would be rendered operational at the end of 2028, which gives between 2 and 3 years of training and preparation, not only training on how to operate, but also on how to select the staff, how to train them, how to create all the profiles that are needed for the new facilities. All that is included as part of the design. But the most important part of it, and I'm very proud to say that, is that they are already part of this. We have already been working 4 months hand by hand with Kia, and they have participated in all the decisions that we have presented to you. It's also how they would like to operate the prison, and this represents their lessons learned and their ambitions professionally. So they are already on board, so I'm really glad to say that this has been a joint effort, and they are involved in it since the very beginning. Yeah.
Thank you for that extra answer. Mrs. Muzanin Weaver.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. I have some questions. If I could just get, I think I missed that part. My apologies, I had to leave the room for just a couple of seconds. What is the cost of the prison that is estimated as of right now? They, from the presentation, you talked about basically the campus setting is the most appropriate. Why is that? For me, I don't know, perhaps I'm not seeing it like you're describing it. Campus to me seems that it's going to be more costly because of the different buildings that you need instead of, kind of like a general building, especially with the number of prisoners that is expected to be housed there. So if you could explain why that would be more effective and perhaps even more cost effective. Why also, what is the calculation that you have currently for the maintenance of the facility? and the programs that are going to be needed, just because as we know, in Aruba, we have that, I guess that issue that beautiful buildings are constructed, but then, they're not being kept because there's not budget for that. So in trying to prevent that from happening again, that if there is some kind of maintenance a budget tied to this project. The other thing is from what we've seen, this is trying to, the goal is for an effective rehabilitation of the prisoners. That requires as well that we have the just amount of personnel also. We already know also, I'm sure you already know also, that we have a lack of personnel in our current facility. So will this proposal or this idea be taking into consideration the lack of personnel that we have and possibly are not going to be able to fulfill those openings, whether that has been taken into consideration and if that will possibly affect the functioning of the security and safety and the programs that are being presented here. And just one other thing, and I know you talked about having a lot of consideration for being sustainable and things like that. Obviously, we had hoped that all the construction doing now is meeting those expectations as well. We know that Aruba has a very unique climate with a lot of saltpeter in our weather, and whether those concerns also are being taken into, because we don't want in 5 years, things being, rusting and requiring more maintenance than is necessary. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Mrs. Weaver. Yes, UNOPS.
Thank you very much. I will try to go in order. First of all, the price. I will summarize again for you. It's the total price would be $119 million divided into the phase one, which is design and procurement for the construction, would be $10.5 million, and the construction management plus the guarantee would be $108.8 million. This is our first estimation. Of course, this is not a final price. Once the final design is concluded, this price can be adjusted, not necessarily increased, can also be decreased. As I answered to your colleague earlier, there's a number of things that need to be decided as the design is implemented. When you say why campus, I try to be brief because this is my area of passion. Campus have proved to be the most efficient rehabilitation layout because it provides specific environments and specific programs for different targeted population. The case in Aruba is very clear that we need to take care of a variety of inmates because we only have one facility. So that indicates that would be the appropriate solution. On the other hand, we have the climatology as well. We know through a number of studies that integration in nature, open spaces, contact with nature, airspace, all that contributes to a better condition. Not only living conditions, and I'm going to connect that to your following question, but also working conditions for the staff. So by creating a better, a most gentle, a most humane facility, we are not only improving the life conditions of the inmates, we are also creating better working conditions that we are hoping that can also help to work on the problem of the shortage of staff. It is a problem, we are very aware of it, and in our project, we are contemplating two measures. One mitigation measure, which would be anticipate this, create better suited job descriptions to create more attractive working conditions. And if this doesn't work, we will have to anticipate as well a possibility that we cannot find all the staff, and that will have to accommodate a solution when it comes to receiving inmates. All that, to have a serious, reliable project, we will have to take into account all that and have a couple of mitigation measures planned. Of course, it has to be done together with Kia to make sure that whatever we propose is reasonable and achievable. But yeah, it is a problem that we are aware well of, and we definitely put a lot of effort into it. Then you mentioned maintenance. Yes, maintenance is included in the budget that we gave. However, I need to make a remark on this. We are advocating for preventive maintenance, which is the cheapest way to maintain a building, anticipate the problems. So within all the roles and tasks that we are going to design, we don't only have operational and service and program staff, we also have maintenance staff that we will have to conduct preventive maintenance to make sure that we anticipate to the problems, because we have plenty of experience already of what happens if we don't stress on this. And I believe I have covered all the questions, but please tell me if... Okay, sustainability consider the climate. That links again with maintenance. There's two key elements here. One is the choice of materials and construction techniques, and the other one is the preventive maintenance. We are well aware of it, and we want to put a lot of emphasis on this when the design phase comes along, and that's something that will have to be worked with the architects and with the local market as well, learning what works, what doesn't work, what's available, what's not, to make sure that whatever we build, it's sustainable and it can find solutions in the local market easily. Thank you very much.
Minister
E
Dawes.
lagami agregar que verdade é custo não para prisão campus modelo certo também para meu comentário também como está indo muito mais caro me está como disse que é na certo benefício não se botar um hotel de 5 estrelas da sala é preço não que nós está papiando aqui não é mais barato para um hotel pero dor que botinho que criar diferente facilidade de cuido de apartar renda etc e operar em lugar está se toca com custo não subir, mas nós também toca discussão ainda com um pouquinho assim. Agora se uma pergunta, minha novidade aconteceu o redor de honorável parlamento, senhora Lindor, que se trata over de população, demografia de bom país, então verdade se nem que nós mira decrease em the young na Aruba, que melhor para esse ponto para mês também se botar ter em conta que sai de desarrollo de boa prisão. Então nós também está analisando esse tema sobre que se a quantidade de renda young baixa ou quanto vai com a renda ou na idade mais alta, não também menos criminal. Se ela portou efeito da quantidade de renda que vamos ter dentro de detenção, o que está aí botar o acta que no momento aqui nós está fazendo calculação baseada em backlog que tinha no Ministério Público. E essa é a frase, se você tem em conta que se ou não, você visa você aqui, quando você vai fazer que se de outra forma, se você tem em conta que nós simplesmente de quase 200 rende, e over de período de de quase 10 anos. Então, esse ponto para se tem make sense, você tem em conta que se no momento que você desura em prisão, não abuso. A prisão que nós temos agora que tem uma certa capacidade, nós está funcionando para, mais que 20% boa de capacidade que nós temos, e agora que nós estamos papiando de aumentar a capacidade. Então, portanto, é hora de me discussão se não precisa não se mantém a capacidade que nós temos, então vai trazer esse é retorno céu não também operacional. O que se agora bisa tá com a quantidade de céu que nós temos, inclui também a céu não para tratamento não especial, que não necessariamente tudo é céu não que eu mencionado em projeto, da céu não para ser a renda permanentemente. Even para contestar a epidemia. Então, agora tem na Constituição e a ACC vai lei tot uma adaptação em suma não que nós estamos mencionando agora aqui. Ok? E a parte de alternativa energia que conta para wastewater que será também nós está levando discussão com ela e a companhia de governo que vai dar over também lo ordem envolvida em processo aqui. Danke.
Muito obrigado, minister Dawes. No seguinte parlamentário com pergunta do senhor Peters.
Muito obrigado, senhor presidente. On behalf of the Patriotic Party of Aruba, PPA, we would like to thank you for your presentation. Very clear, very informative. I think the key takeaway for this presentation is the business case. That says everything. So in the first quarter of this year, you guys are expecting maybe a signing of the agreement. And that's very important because after that, the phase one will start, where you have studies and design development and so forth. The phase 1 and 2 will continue. That's why I don't have specific questions for you guys, but I have a question for the Ministry of Justice. I will go to the Parlamento. Mas bom dia. Bom dia, esse não gosta de seguir nós também. A mim tem uma pergunta, pero basar a pergunta aqui, nós temos que o contexto particular aqui, nós saco aqui maneira que está agora que está de fase roupa deplorável, nós saco falta de personal, nós papiamos entre 73% e 75%, nós saco personal, não está sentindo mais agradável, botawaku para nós no trabalho e botawaku ausência of Hiranta meldzik basta frequente, meldzik gehalte está op alto. Dus tudo isso aqui não está com negativo e me está compreender que o país Aruba de Bissau, se não tem placa, nós não podemos den rumbo of den navegar com UNOPS. Pero pensei mesmo, a pergunta está para que tempo lo acaba de fazer exercício, não, senhor presidente, para mira se tem fundo para iniciar com fase 1. So, nós estamos na fase 0. Pero no saco tem a minha rato time bom rato para riba já aqui. Dus kiko falta e que tempo nos está queda claro que o exercício para bisa se está sim ou se está não. Danke, senhor presidente.
Mas danke, senhor Peters, minister Dowers.
Senhor presidente, madame avisa ora, nós mexemos numa prisão nova, esse é o ponto de saída. Nós mexemos na discussão com finanças para mirar kiko está possível na lo que está fiança, nós acertamos aqui também na Holanda, digo que a Holanda também está muito positivo no processo, que não está uma questão de dia e semana para bom contexto definitivo. Dia e semana.
Mas danke, minister. No seguinte parlamentar com pergunta, senhor John Hart.
Thank you very much, voorzitter. And thank you very much, UNOPS representatives, and of course the minister, professionals. Most of my questions have been answered. Thank you very much for the extensive information that we have received. Of course, when you look at the numbers, I tend to react just like our minister has a way of saying it can be very difficult, difícil, because the numbers are very high. You talk about $119 million. So, to be honest, when I look at a business case, I believe that the whole parliament is very excited to see the groundbreaking, but we have to get there. So I extend words of wisdom in this process to the minister and the Ministry of Justice in finding solutions. And of course, we as a parliament and Fractie AVP, we will be available in everything we can do for the government in bringing these solutions. I had one question, because most of the questions have been answered. You said something very important, because we have been there last year as a parliament, and you said there is no need to have a bigger prison, but it has to be a better prison. And I think that's something that really lives when you talk to the management team and all the the people that work there, the staff. It has to be a better prison. I believe when I see the current management, the director, he can surely agree. My question for the minister is the following. Because this is not, UNOPS is not something new. This has been going on in the prior government. So my question for the minister is this. There was a plan. I heard there was a plan. What was that plan? And in that plan, how was the prior government planning to finance this? That's my question.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Minister Dowers.
Senhor Presidente, nós temos um par de minutos só ainda mais, mas me vou acontecer aqui bastante cortico. Até tem dus ora me mesa ba como ministro da tem plan trabalhar lá atrás, caminho com bota tem ponto de saída para pegar no prisão novo. Depois se abin oito anos passar abin outro ministro, então ela duna segundo ela saca request for interest of proposal de dois para llegan a diseñar prisão e construir, pero segundo não llega nunca na fase, porque tinha que haver bir back nesse bicho que a ganhar processo, pero nunca llega na fase de dus quando visa de dona projeto não ende. Vervolgens bem a ideia para lá UNOPS se full processo de novo. Anto ora nós sabemos nós há dus voorstel então nós vai trazer né, pero não se nem cuta tem momento que se voorstel uma ideia que precisa de custo tem begroting, que não tem nunca acaba processo Dus agora aqui está para enviar com nós depois de copiar trobe então com nós serviço que busquico tem nós sale de ponto de vista certa maneira nós lo quer esse processo anto que agora que tem ganhando na número não que tampouco está definitivo ou se não se vai com a direção da base também corta certo caminho então depois nós vai custo se o que tem agora aqui visata é mais ideal cenário então nós vai dentro da possibilidade que nós temos junto com algum partido também que é importante no processo aqui para mirar se nós for assim algum custo diferente é nem reduzir custo também. Yes, thank you.
Mas dank senhor Dowers. Nós temos dois parlamentários mais que essa pergunta ainda. Dus se nós for vrolijk.
Bom dia, ministro. Pergunta para o ministro, direto e conciso. Não, pessoal, tem uma discussão de que o ministro está também sempre de TBS, isso é algo que nós hasta al ser en reino tempo ya e a proponer tempo hasta para boneiro assim a poner na pero na final do dia tem hasta rapport me dahera het kost geld. Ora chega na placa e não tem que pagar nada. Dus é problema grande que tem. E meus comités contento que siga também com o local que firma na 2024 para o projeto aqui postar. E pergunta da ministra tá se mirando com o barra de 2018, 2018 agora andem bem que tá aqui dentro, tocante barcadeira, RPV, etc. Se me outra aí que também tem hereiken de RPV se tá bom, se tem em conta que sei também, se busca outra possibilidade, não? E naturalmente problema grande que nós temos ainda nós tem para execução de saque tá e verbot of PPPs, não? Dus com o quadro de lei das turbanos de desenvolvimento e desenvolvimento e ministro suficiente ribesaque e naturalmente é parte de investir em fundos. No momento que nós estamos dormindo, hope placa dormir, para 70, 80 milhões da baixa, já botar 70 milhões a trocar cada ano de budget, mas é fundo limitativo infinito e mirando nossa necessidade de local que a placa para execução assim que também é suficiente o pensamento que a placa nós pode usar para com o commitment para nós concentrar que essa aqui não, so placa tem e me querer que investir esforços está no seu lugar, mas também se nós barre candidato de placa que está strom door em que commitment de begroting, me querer que nós colocamos projeto que está muito importante e que tem ministro me a bem e bem back e topo que mais problema back, então me querer que por vir uma solução estrutural, mas trouxe esse pensamento de mim, a escorrência de governo está diferente.
Dank senhor Vrolijk, minister.
Senhor Presidente, o modelo para financiamento está dentro da discussão, mas não é bisa. Estava pensando que todo partido não tem algo de bisa de aqui e o picortico me quer despedir a ver nosso bem contexto. Para o que se trata é lugar, nós europeus está a bordo evaluar agora aqui não, pero tem momento aqui o lugar agora determinado em passado que está lugar com porto optimal e não se quer que não tenha razão no momento aqui ainda para cambiar. Tá.
Mas dank, minister. Senhor Gulu.
Bom dia, collega Nang. Thank you for the presentation, representative from UNOPS. Bom dia na Kia staff. Bom dia. Eu tenho uma pergunta na senhor minister, a $2. O projeto que custa $8 milhões, custa $12 milhões florim. Que possibilidade tem que nós por bater na porta de UN, Europese Unie, com parte financeira? Me saco St. Maarten há bedrag de UN para uma prisão que atualmente me compreende de construção, mas se lá é presentas que bidem média que o UN lo dá parte e Holanda lo dá parte. Dus que possibilidade tem que nós também aqui na Aruba ponha parte de placa aqui. Mas danke.
Dank, senhor Gulu. Senhor Dowers.
Presidente, nossa check modelo não para o que é financiamento de prisão, nós meses assim, nós nem que nós também placa nenhum caminho, pero o que é importante para vista que St. Maarten há fundo de Holanda, o fundo aqui é bem for de gemanaged door de World Bank, não door de United Nations, pero o fundo de wederopbouw de Suécia storm de Irma, door zij na lugar de haia e placa a nós aqui nos prisão tem uma condição que ambientes duro supletamente bem bom nós não tem sim fundo de wederopbouw para sei dus nós não está contra de sei o que se nós está contra de gente por exemplo em certa Holanda para lening na caminho Cuba taia entre sub massabou com o spar nós mais sobre placa mesmo tem fiança para a prisão. Danke, senhor presidente. Te quero não se queda claro nada. Danke pela cooperação de Turende.
Mas dank, senhor Dowers. Nós temos uma pergunta de senhor Chong que não vai contestar e nós diz passar aí para nós finalizar. Senhor Chong.
Sim, mas danke, voorzitter. Permite-me 10 segundos para pôr turcos em contexto, sim, para sobre e respeito para me corrigir, minister, para o projeto aqui de UNOPS não foi iniciado pelo governo aqui, ele foi iniciado pelo governo anterior. Se o que é fecha não, de turcos que está firma, da governo anterior a firma essa aqui. Em todo caso, me pergunta tinha ver rato com é timeline. Para sobre me te querer para prometer Aruba tá luz na final de Eternal. Aqui 4 anos nos portem prisão novo. Me te querer fazer tremendo trabalho para preparar for essa aqui. 2 perguntas, senhor voorzitter. Se o ministro indicar que ainda não sabe se está seguindo com o UNOPS, porque o ministro check promete se tem fundo, me pergunta se está puro solamente uma questão de fundo. Então, o ministro tem pensado por estar de engage com outro partido, ou o ministro engage com outro partido, ou tem de ver solamente com fundo. Então, se o fundo não está available, lo está UNOPS seguro? Essa é a primeira pergunta. E de 2, se o ministro por compartilhar com o Parlamento e 4 deliverables não, que o UNOPS a indicar de atrás, e por último, o ministro indicar algum dia, algum semana, missa que esse quizás está papel político, missa que quando aqui está tomando tempo, o ministro está querendo que para end abril ou em maio é realístico que porte uma decisão para nós com o projeto aqui lo sigue encaminado. Mas danke.
Mas danke, senhor Chong. Minister Dowers.
If you're going to repeat that. Okay. We have 4 minutes. Okay. Just let me answer first. Pergunta na agora se correção que o senhor Chong que assim respeitosamente, me te querer respeitosamente, ela me pediu senhor Chong para escutar bom que me avisa que na 8 anos passado a começar o processo caminho para determinar que vai bem prisão. Promete que sai também tem diferentes estudos na quadra assim. E lá como avisa tá que abordo pedina UNOPS algum luna passada, menos mais com ano passado, para fazer projeto para Aruba, para a implementação do projeto que toma lugar é último luna aqui Waardoor o governo anterior não pôr a determinar budget. Dus eigenlijk, met de keren, mas explica juist bom que não está que o governo anterior cometeu erro de não apresentar budget, o governo anterior não pôde apresentar budget, passou a implementação de processo aqui a começar algum luna passar, quase ano passado, menos, tinha outro governo sinta. Isso é o que me avisa. Não avisa que o governo que atrasou UNOPS, it doesn't matter quem abine com UNOPS, mas sobre que UNOPS está com uma organização internacional que está cumprindo com certo serviço, se eu o pedir. Não tem discussão, não tem nenhuma discussão, se me vai back na quanto vezes acaba de passado abine apresentação para purba de chegar na prisão novo. Bopai me segumi, bopai ama tudo nessa de justiça que está sentado segumi. O último ano aqui na back te com Weiland Watifos na um intento para chegar na prisão novo. Nós notas nele ainda, como vista tá que para por determinar se bota vai seguir, está sinto me coisa que a botar essa ponta se emitiu outro trem para ele, se o presidente na final do dia, lá na sua picla, e na sinta que não de UNOPS, não está vai desenhar nenhuma prisão para nós. Não está parte de processo, então não está aí que na mesa vai estudar trabalho. E tampouco desenha o presidente com AMI, por ter qualquer interesse para vir com nenhum renda para desoriar nenhuma prisão para Aruba. Anche com nós temos por estar com a também. Para tomar porque há processo que na final do dia está garantizar que vai cumprir com toda a regra e lei, isso é hora avisar também, que não. Quando as pessoas analisam bom e não, sem regra novo de ambassading. E nós precisamos cumprir com toda a coisa. Então, se não é que tem business aqui, maduna, e o nosso projeto, só me assistente, business, também brother, não bingo lá no Parlamento, maduna, não projeto. So, werkt het niet. Eu digo que o processo na mesa está, vamos ver se verdadeiramente nós podemos chegar na financiamento de prisão, de modo que eu vou apresentar agora aqui, passa no momento que sai vira duidelijk, com o time placa, ou bisa que você comita querer que nós consiga, nós fazemos fulana também tem processo aqui de dar um conselho, e você quer. E não tem nada de ver com se me que traga o grupo que se chama não, vai tomar rata, se acaso me da chega na cumprir com o requisito não com lei estipular para por vai over na seguinte fase. Isso está duidelijk, não tem nada de escorrência de nenhum ende, vai tomar rata, o mês está duidelijk para você, se chega no financiamento, se você chega no financiamento, agora usam parte do financiamento aí para você ter fase A. Porque me espera que seja duidelijk e o deliverables não me te querer que o não se apresentar não me amas, se na mesa nem.
UNOPS. Banije. Isso não é preto.
Ja, dank. Oké.
Mas danki minister, eu nós está aí hard copy para parlamentar não por passar dinge. Mas danki para a disponibilidade para portar outra aqui na parlamento para dar uma apresentação riba e processo de lo que está prisão novo e quero agradecer tu rende e desejar tu rende feliz dia verde.